Now, we were just getting ready to remove the altar, but the fact is, our next speaker, we may need this up here for him. Yes, he was one of the famous Broad Street bullies. I can tell you from my own experience, knowing Don for many years now, that he truly has a heart of gold. A heart of gold. You didn't know that on the ice, but it's true. And people around Philadelphia and the world know him as a world-class athlete. I have the privilege to know him not just as a world-class athlete, but a world-class sinner. Truly one of the great sinners of all time. Give him a big round of applause. Man up, Philly, round of applause. Don Big Bird Saleski. Bird, come on up. Come on up. Give him some love. Give him some encouragement. Bird, come on up. Rise up. He's not moving as fast as he used to on the ice, I can tell you that. Glide up here, Bird. By the way, Don has inspired more people to confession from the first Man Up I think he did maybe 6 or 7 years ago, Don. And Don was part of the original Gospel Reflection group that was the genesis of Man Up. So give him some love. Don Saleski, Bird.
Do I need these or whatever you want? Can I use this?
Yeah. Would you rather do that?
Does this work?
It does.
It's working? I like that. So, what do I have to say? World-class sinner. I mean, you know, talk about, let's get a dose of humility. And then, you know, following Jim Toohey and Mark Forrest, you know, is this giving you feedback here? Okay. Couple tough acts to follow. And Jim walked up here and he's got a binder with about 50 pages of notes. So right away I'm humbled because I got this. You know, I don't know where I'm going for there. But it is humbling to be recognized as a world-class sinner. By the way, just Philadelphia is an amazing city because people don't forget their athletes in this town. And, you know, particularly if you win a championship. I'm obviously fortunate enough that we won 2. I got a text from a buddy of mine just about 10 minutes ago. Don Saleski was traded 40 years ago today to the Colorado Rockies. Now that'll humble you, 40 years. Where the heck is time gone, right? But I had not gone to confession for 30 years. So think about that, 30 years. So I need a little survey before I start this off because I may be able to wind this little talk down quickly. How many of you have gone to confession within the last year? Okay, I'm done. What am I going to waste my time for? Just go up there, go to confession. There's a ton of priests. You're all good to go. 30 years. And, you know, you talk about things that change your life and happen through your course of life. And I'll just share a little bit of it. And hopefully it'll encourage you to today go to confession, possibly impact your life in some way that will help lead you in a more spiritual path. But after hockey, I had a blessed hockey life, and I also had a blessed business life. I did fairly well in business, and I was fortunate. However, I was traveling 3 to 7 days a week, every week, all over the country, all over Europe, and was on a real fast track after hockey as I built my business career. It finally got to the point where about has to be 16 years ago. I woke up in a hotel in California on a Thursday night in the middle of the night with had to be 103-degree fever. This bed was soaking wet. And I just stared up at the ceiling and I said to myself, what are you doing with your life? Where do you think this is getting you? That morning when I got up, I called my wife and I said, you know what, hon, I got to tell you something. When I get home Sunday, so I had to go from California to Colorado, when I get home Sunday, I'm quitting work. And she said, what are you, crazy? You're doing great. You've got a great career. You're way too young. I was 50 years old, so that's 18. I'm 68 now, so it's 18 years ago. She said, there's no way you're going to quit work. You're not feeling well. Just think it over. When you get home, you'll feel different. Well, I got home that Sunday night. I went on Monday morning, and I handed in my resignation. And I just felt that I had to get my life straight. So my next call after my wife got over that, she said, if that's really what you're doing it. I'm not going to stop you. I said, look, there's something wrong in my life. I got to get my act together. I got to straighten things out. And the only way I'm going to do it is so I just stop and slow down. My next call was to Usmita. And this is before he had this enormous following in the gospel reflection groups and everything, then way before ManUp Philly. And he said to me, I said, Use, I got to tell you something. He said, you're getting divorced. I said, no, I'm not getting divorced. He said, well, what is it? He said, I quit my job. He said, that's wonderful news. I said, wonderful news. I just quit my job and I have no idea what I'm going to do. He said, come over to my office on Friday morning. So I went over to his office Friday morning, and there was probably 2 other guys there, Use? 3 or 4 of us, right? And little did I know that it was the beginning of a gospel reflection group. So I sat down and went through basically the same type of gospel reflection that he's still doing today, 18 years later, which is amazing. And they've got a following 2 days now, on Thursdays and Fridays, and over 40 people there. And that was what started to change my life. That was my turning point. I started to go into the gospel reflection groups. We eventually started one at St. Mary Magdalene's. And I'll tell you guys, my experience, and you heard it from Jim today, you can't do it alone. That's why the gospel reflection groups are so powerful. That's why ManUp Philly is so powerful, because going it alone is way too tough. There's way too many influences out there, negative influences, pressures at work, pressures at home. We all talk about pornography all the time. There's way too much to not have a support group and a network of guys that are there to pray with you. And that takes a man to admit that and to pray. So my journey along the road, and I'll lay this out for you. This is what I'm going to talk to you about today, is sort of what I follow as my personal self-evaluation when I'm preparing for confession. And I do this every time. I started going to confession, and the first time that I went, I wasn't even sure how we even conduct a confession. But now I've got the things that I felt that I had to do to change my life, I had to instill some new disciplines in my life. If I was going to change, I had to change my habits. And what would that take? The first thing was, I said it, discipline. I had to have some disciplines in my life. And that was discipline not only, first of all, first and foremost, with my prayer life with God, second with my family, next with my friends, and third and last was with business. When we bring up pornography, one of the little things that I did, and we all do things differently, we all discipline ourselves differently, but one of the little things I did with myself was I carry a rosary all the time. And if I ever have thoughts that are wrong, it's in my pocket. I have it right there. And I might not say the whole rosary, I may just say a decade, I may just say a couple prayers, but it's always in my hand. The second thing I did is I took a crucifix and I put it beside my computers, all my computers. If that crucifix is sitting there at my computer and I'm still going to click through and look at stuff that's not appropriate, then I got real issues. So those are the couple of things that I've done with discipline in my life. The next thing is, responsibility. Taking responsibility for who I am, where I am in life, and what my obligations are. And they always, as I say, it starts with your prayer life and with your family. When I think about responsibility, I think of a story that we had, that back in the day we were playing in the playoffs. And a lot of you may be young enough to remember Freddie Shiro and the Broad Street Bullies, but Freddie was our coach. And we were playing Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs. And we'd split the first two games, and we should have been walking away with this series with Toronto. Freddie came into the dressing room before warm-ups and put a bucket of water. And forgive those of you that have heard this story before, but it's one that stuck with me for my whole life. He took a bucket of water and he put it on the training table, and then he left the room. And we had 15 minutes, and we were lacing up our skates, and we're wondering where Freddie is. He usually came and talked about strategy and laid out the game plan and what we had to, what the lines were, and talk about a little strategy. He never came in. Buzzer went off to go out on the ice, and Clarkie said, Bobby Clark was our captain. He said, I don't know what happened to Freddie, but we better go out there on the ice. We got a game to play. So we did up our skates. And just before we were getting up to go on the ice, Freddie came in, and he called Ricky McLeish over, God rest his soul. And he says, Ricky, I want you to come over here. Ricky got up and he walked over. He says, roll up your sleeve. He rolled up his sleeve. He says, stick your hand in that bucket of water. He stuck it in. He says, now pull it out. Pulled it out. And he says, Ricky, see the hole that's left? And Ricky said, Freddie, there ain't no hole there. Freddie said, well, that's how much we'll miss you when you're gone. So, you think about something that will get your attention, but I've never forgot that. And here's why. I think about it in life. We can only impact what we're doing today, in the moment. What you're doing here right now with this group. When we're gone, I have another friend that says, when you're dead, you're dead. And you know what? He's absolutely right. Once we're gone, it's too late. But Jim was talking about it today. No matter what our age is, we can influence people, and we can influence in a positive way, and we can change our life. So, discipline, responsibility. The other value that I really try to live by is integrity. What I do and what I say got to be the same thing. I can't go around BSing people or myself. Who you are, what you say, and what you do got to be the same thing. Then perseverance. As a world-class sinner, I obviously fall down. And you know what? That's okay. We're all going to do that. We all have those habits that we've developed over years and that we'd love to change. One of my big one's impatience. Not having the patience that I need to. And I'll work on it. No matter how I work on it, at some point I'm going to hurt somebody through my impatience. So that perseverance, when we fail, we all got shortcomings. We're human beings. When we fail, having the perseverance and getting up and starting over. The other thing I think about is courage. Courage in terms of standing up for the right things, having courage when you're confronted with challenges. And I think back to the time in my life that took me the most courage. People will say, you know, when I was a hockey player, going in front of the net, going into the corners to work with a puck, getting pounded, or one example, you know, people look at me and they say, you were a tough guy when you played hockey. Guess what? The last thing I wanted to do, the thing I hated most about hockey, I wish I were playing today because there's no fights. I hated fights. You can get hurt. I mean, that other guy's trying to hurt you. You know, he's not there. It's not fake. And I share this story with you that one time we were playing, talking about courage. You know, we were playing in Pittsburgh and there was a guy named, a brawl started and everybody's fighting all over the ice. And I turn around and the only guy that's left is this guy named Battleship Kelly, heavyweight Golden Gloves boxing champion. And this guy's standing there, he's got arms down to his knees, man. And he came over to me and we started fighting and he beat me unmercifully. Let me tell you something. He beat me unmercifully. So finally, some refs broke it up. The brawl broke up and everybody's going to the penalty box and or to the bench. And the fight started again. And everybody fought. Nobody wants to fight Battleship Kelly. Here's Battleship Kelly again. He's right in front of me. He's skating towards me. I picked up my hockey stick and I said, if you come one step closer, I'm going to bust you over the head with this. And he stood there and looked at me. He must have saw the fear in my eyes and he said, this guy's serious. However, that kind of courage is nothing compared to the courage it took to go to confession after 30 years. I can assure you, the courage it takes for a person to go to confession and the humility it takes is nothing compared to anything that I confronted on the ice. So this first time after 30 years, I walk into the confessional and it wasn't sitting up here in front of people. I went to the farthest parish I could pick. I didn't even know where it was. And, you know, and I went in and, you know, I saw the green light on and there was nobody in there. I said, oh, I got a break. This is good. So I get into the confessional and I said, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. And let me tell you something. I was sweating. I was soaking. It was right through my shirt. It was a summer day and it was hot out and I was sweating. I was petrified. I said, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been 30 years since my last confession and I've done everything but kill. He says to me, wait, let's slow down a little bit. Let's talk this through. I'm sure that you're not that bad. So we had probably a 20-minute conversation and he gave me absolution and I went off and it changed my life. It absolutely changed my life. I felt like a free person. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I started going to confession on a regular basis. I actually started going for a long time, and I'm not doing it now. If the need be, I'll go back to it, but I started going weekly. And I went to Father Riley down in Avalon one time. Everybody knows Father Riley. He's a wild man. And I said, bless me, Father, for I sinned. It's a week since my last confession. I started. He said, were you here last week? He says, you don't need to come here this often anymore. I said, okay, thanks, Father. I appreciate that. But so that courage, and it does take courage, and it takes a high degree of humility to go to confession. I really would encourage all of you that go on a regular basis, go more often. Those of you that haven't gone, go to confession today. It's a great opportunity. The other thing with my examination of conscience that I go through so far: discipline, responsibility, integrity, perseverance, courage, charity. Keep loving our hearts. Keep loving our hearts. Pray often. And first of all, love towards my family. It all starts there. And we're all challenged with different things in life that take us away and want to lead us in a different direction. But having that charity and love is one of the best gifts that we can give back to everybody around us and to ourselves. And the last thing that I think about is being dedicated. You have to be dedicated to instill the habits that you want. You can't just do things once. And the worst thing that we can do is be idle. Idleness is a killer. It's a threat for all of us. So if I can just share those thoughts with you: discipline, responsibility, integrity, perseverance, courage, charity, and being dedicated to it. Make it your life. Make it a lifestyle. And associate, like you are today, with men that are like-minded. If you're hanging out with the right people, it's amazing how we think and act like the folks that we're with. So I appreciate you listening to me today. Thank you for coming up to ManUp Philly, coming out to ManUp Philly. 10 years. This is one of the greatest events that we have in Philadelphia. Think about those gospel reflection groups. Have the courage to stand up if you don't have one, and go back to your parish pastor and suggest that you start a gospel reflection group. Everyone around you will gain from it, and you will gain from it. So thank you today. Enjoy the rest of your day. And sorry I didn't have more notes. I could have talked longer.
Don Big Bird Saleski! Boy, I was dying to do that, you can tell.